this Tuesday, November 12th. We'll call to order at 7:01 p.m. I'll start by stating that the Board of Education acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. We'd like to thank them for the privilege of working on their land and working with living on the land and working with their children. I feel particular appreciation and gratitude for living in this beautiful place as our world feels a little more tumultuous than maybe a few months ago. Yes, I'm very appreciative. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of the Honorable Murray Sinclair last week on November 4th. He was a fearless Anishinaabe trailblazer who was the first Indigenous judge appointed in Manitoba. He was a Canadian senator and, of course, the chair of Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And in that role, he courageously led the work of uncovering painful and difficult truths about our country and particularly our residential school system and other legacies of colonialism. He repeatedly emphasized the idea that education is the path and the way forward towards reconciliation, famously stating words to the effect that education is what got us into this mess, and it's the way we educate our children that will get us out of it, that it will take likely generations, but that it's important work for us all to be doing, and really makes the work that we're doing around this table just feel all the more important. And I really appreciate everyone's willingness to take time out of their busy schedules to be here. I also want to say I loved a statement that he made in a 2021 interview that we have to learn how to talk to and about each other with greater respect than that has ever been in the past. And I think that those words are particularly true this day and this week. I've heard him described as a Canadian hero, as the soul of our country, and Canada's Nelson Mandela. We will miss him, and his passing certainly gives us all an opportunity to really reconnect with his teachings, his messages, and the 94 calls to action. Next, I want to say that we're doing this a little bit differently today. We have been in the process of really trying to evolve our committee of the whole, our monthly meeting that is meant to be a more open forum for generative discussion, more fulsome discussion about the issues that impact our district, and to try and open that discussion up to our partner groups. In a way that is a little different than our regular board meetings where our partner groups sit separately from us and have time at the end of the meeting to share their thoughts. The idea here is to all sit equally around the circle and to share our thoughts in a safe and welcoming environment. We're also going to, I'm holding a talking stick, which I appreciate is on loan from my colleague, Trustee Leslie. And as we take turns talking, we will also take turns with passing the talking stick to our speaker at any given time. With that, I would ask Trustee to move to adopt our agenda. Motion to adopt agenda.
Yep.
Sarah Jane.
For the Board of Education of School District 71, Comox Valley, approve the open committee of the whole agenda dated November 12th as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Before we move, we have two items, major items on our agenda today. One within the context of education, a lovely presentation coming up, and one in the context of operations. But before we do that, we thought that it would be nice to do a quick circle of introductions and make sure that we all know one another. And yeah. So my name is Shannon Aldinger. I am chairing this meeting today. I am a trustee for the City of Courtenay. It is my first term as a trustee, and I feel grateful and very privileged to be in this role and to have all of you here today, caring as you do and putting this amount of time and energy into the well-being of our district and the children we serve. Right. Clockwise. Apologies.
I'm Michelle Waite. I'm one of our trustees on the Board of Education, and I'm currently the board chairperson. I'm admiring the art that has started to populate our walls, and just thinking about how it makes the room a little warmer, and the fish, I don't know, they're on the go. And I think that a lot of things we do in this room are about being on the go, and the work that we do with children in our schools. I also want to take this opportunity to reflect on the passing of past Premier John Horgan today. While we may not always recognize those that have passed from the time that we were last together, just the acknowledgement that on this day, we've lost one of our most recent premiers, and one, I guess, that I spent more time with than any other premier that I might know, and just reflecting on the work of those that hold public office, and some of the complexities that go into that. Trustees might be far different than John from Langford and how he did his work, but just acknowledging that there are hearts feeling many feelings today across our province.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy, Superintendent of Schools. I'm glad you're all here. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Janice Caton. I'm very thankful and grateful that we're all here tonight in a circle having a great conversation regarding the education of our students in the district.
Yele Kessler, Chichahalet. I'm Susan Leslie, and I represent Tana Comox, and it's wonderful to be here and to see all your faces and have you join our circle.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Peterson-Skeen, District Principal of Early Learning and Childcare, and I'm really excited to share some learning with you tonight.
Hi, I'm Vivian Collier, Associate Superintendent, and yeah, I'm also very excited to talk about learning tonight.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name's Jay from Comox, and after 3.5 years, I can confidently say that. I really appreciate living here. I feel I'm an associate superintendent. I feel extra pressure this evening because my family's watching live this evening. Hi, family.
Hi, everyone. I'm Molly, Director of Operations. I've been in Comox for 5 years. So.
Oh, you got me.
Sean Holland from the Comox District Teachers Association, and thank you very much for inviting us to be a part of the service.
Hi, guys. Just Jen, DPAC Chair, parent.
Megan Cowling, DPAC Secretary and parent.
Kiyoshi Koski, QP Local President 439. Much gratitude for inviting us here, part of this process. And also gratitude for this district's strong support of SOGI, as I was in A&W with my daughter and experienced a person that was not in support of that, who publicly, while I was with my daughter, had an interaction that was quite hard to handle. And so the reason I could handle it is because of this district's support of social justice and humanity, and standing in that place that I can stand with it. So thank you.
I'm Lori Ball. I am Vice President for QP 439, 3-year retiree from the district, but still on call. Probably do more now that I'm retired than I did when I worked full time. And thank you so much for inviting us.
Craig Sorokin, the Communications Manager.
Josh Porter, Director of Information Technology.
Marlene Leach, Senior Executive Assistant.
Good evening, Gayla Kessler, Chelsea McCannell-Keen. Thank you for that reminder. I use she, her pronouns, and for the wonderful words you just said tonight. Happy to be here all together.
Good evening, Carrie McVeigh, Secretary Treasurer. I just love this. It already has a different feel with us all being around the same table. So just lots of gratitude.
Hi, Sarah Jane Howe, the last trustee to speak tonight. I also hold the position of vice chair just recently. Yeah, so happy to be with everyone. I did, amongst all the busyness in my schedule this week, had a lot of balls in the air, but I did manage to take a peek at the slideshow, and so I am very excited to hear your presentation, and I'm glad there's so many people here tonight to enjoy it. And I love hearing that there's people watching online, so welcome to anyone that's online. And yeah, looking forward to a great evening of learning with everybody.
Thanks. Welcome everyone online as well. All right, well, we're all here for the important topic of education. So without further ado, I can pass the reins to Dr. Collier and District Principal Peterson Skeen.
Thank you. Okay, so, oh, you're doing that. Okay, good. We're good. So, thank you for hosting us tonight. Lisa and I are really, really excited to give you an update on where we're at with the Literacy and Numeracy Framework. I hope you're okay with us sitting as we chat. It feels a little more informal that way. And I hope you're also okay with interaction, because if you've got questions and things, please let us know as we go. We've got a lot to share with you, and we may not have anticipated all of the things that you're curious about, so please let us know. And we've got something for you to try later. I've presented on the framework before, and I just wanted to remind us, you can see an icon up there, a cycle. And so really the approach here is thinking of ourselves as a learning organization, and we're continuously improving the work that we do. And so we've been approaching the design of the literacy and numeracy frameworks from the same sort of perspective. It takes a long time to do these things when you co-construct and learn together. And we've had many, I'd say hundreds of people who've contributed in some way to this framework. So that does take some time, but it's also a very thoughtful framework. And I'm excited to share some of the things that we're doing this year with you. And before we get into that though, I just want to remind us when this conversation started, and that was back in May 2022. And we asked the schools, what is it that you're needing? And in this question, in developing the literacy and numeracy frameworks, what factors do we need to consider? So the schools were very clear with us, make sure that whatever you're doing, these things are somehow integrated in there. So you can take a look at those, but a few things I would like to highlight. For example, one of the bullets, aligning with learning theory and research, which we do, and we are doing, but also making sure that we were aligning with the BC curriculum, because that is the work of teachers. And so we wanted to make sure that everything is fitting together, and also district directions. And at that time, an example would have been environmental and outdoor learning. So making sure that we were thinking of education very holistically in this work, and that literacy and numeracy would be integrated into that. So that was really important to teachers in our district. Another thing to highlight is just that universal design for learning. So wanting it to be an inclusive piece, and how would we design so that there's different entry points for everyone, there's differentiation, people can all be successful from where they're starting from and improve in their development with literacy and numeracy. So there's a few other things there, but those are some key things that we're finding are really, really helpful now as we're starting to implement this work. The other question we asked schools at that time was, how do you see a district framework helping you in meeting the literacy and numeracy needs of your students? And you can see in there what kinds of things came forward. So for example, having formative assessments and practices and tools. That was really, really important to people. An opportunity to collect some data so that we could use that information to inform our teaching. So those sorts of things. Just want to remind people also that, as I was saying, this takes a lot of time, lots of evolutions. We do a lot of iterations and we get feedback and we get better and better at it. So back in 2022, that's when we were still gathering input from schools. What do you want to see in these frameworks? Then in the later part of that year, we had many district after-school meetings hearing about the research and from different jurisdictions, et cetera, to help us come up with that information. In 2023, we had subgroups, working groups of teachers working on the frameworks and looking at all of the input we received from everyone who attended those after-school sessions. And then by 2023-24, we had actually developed some assessments. We were field testing them and also still drafting things, as well as, and I just want to really highlight this, we were also doing professional learning as we were doing it. So this really is a process of learning as well as a process of development. So we are continuously building our capacity, our collective efficacy as a group around this topic throughout this process. This year, we have a couple of assessments that are ready and actually being used right now, implemented right now, and we'll talk a bit about that in a moment. And we're working with Alana in IT to develop a database so that we can input all of this information that we gather. And eventually, we're hoping that teachers can actually do it in real time. And with a device, they could just enter stuff as they're talking with kids in conversations. And then schools, the administration would have a dashboard that would show them where kids are at as they're doing these assessments and doing their learning. So we're working towards that. It's still a work in progress, takes a bit of time, but that's on the horizon. And of course, continuing our professional learning opportunities. So just a few highlights, if you're new to the frameworks, just so that you know, right from the beginning of this whole process, we've had all departments included in it. So we've had district staff from early learning, curriculum, inclusive education, and Indigenous education right from the beginning. We had teachers from various roles across the district and in different grades, K to 12. We had early childhood educators from our Strong Starts, and we had administrators in there. So everybody in every kind of role has been part of this process. And then we also got input from other places. So school staffs through the iterative process, letting them see things, give us feedback, and through the participants who went to the after-school sessions and provided input, that was open to everyone. And of course, the district student advisory gave us information as well. What I'd like to highlight up there are a couple of things. Holistic view of students and their learning was really, really important to everyone. And so meaning we wanted to think about literacy and numeracy as a holistic piece, as well as also honing in on specific skills and strategies. So we wanted to see all of the aspects of literacy and numeracy in that, as well as seeing students as holistic. And thinking about all parts of them and how that contributes to their learning in literacy and numeracy. The other piece I'd like to point out up there is that we made sure that this framework integrates the curricular directions of our curriculum. You'll see play in there, there's inquiry in there, Indigenous perspectives are in there, deeper learning pedagogies, UDL, the whole bit. Something I'd really like to highlight for you that's a little bit different maybe with our framework than some other ones you might have heard about in other districts is we were really, really careful to make sure that whatever assessments we designed were meant for classroom teachers with their kids in their classrooms. And the reason for that was we know that the most important assessment that happens is that happens in the classroom and informs the instruction. So we made sure that whatever we were going to design together was going to be useful to teachers and kids in the classroom. And then from there, we thought of what will that mean to the rest of the assessment system. So you can see on this graphic, I'm representing a little bit about the classroom assessment. That's what all of these are. And they tell the teacher information like, how is each student doing? How is my whole class doing? And how might I group them for instruction? Who needs supplemental learning? And did the learning make a difference when I did those targeted pieces of instruction? So that's the most important piece, because we know that's where the learning actually happens. The school-wide assessment piece is that sort of idea of the principal having access to all of the students and how they're doing across many years and can share that with the whole staff. And it just helps with things like planning and prioritizing and how you might group students, et cetera, in the school. And then when it comes to district, those are really just check-ins, because at the district level, we're looking at, large cohorts over time. And in that case, we just need to know generally how many kids are being successful right now in a cohort, and then how many are struggling. And then when we do something, what difference does it make? So that's what we're mostly looking at. What's interesting in this process is because we have kept it iterative, because we've included inclusive ed, so school psychologists have seen it, SLPs have seen it, because we've had other eyes on it. What's come out of this process, for example, is with the K assessment, as an example. It's a very comprehensive assessment, and you'll get a chance to look at it in a moment. What you should know about it, though, is that over time, we've reached the point of the district check-in. All we need from the K assessment is the component about phonemic awareness, because that's the one indicator that might mean something down the road. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it might mean that the student is struggling for a different reason. And so that's why we need that information, so we can think about intervening in some way and supporting kids there. But we don't need to have the whole assessment, because that's not information that will necessarily help us make decisions at that level. At a classroom level, though, the teacher needs all of that information, because they're teaching the whole holistic view of literacy. Any questions about that? Just before I go ahead, I hope I made some sense there. Yeah? All right. So I just want to show you what that looks like for literacy then. So up there, you can see the different district check-in points. We already have provincial data. And that's the only data we actually have right now, is the grade 4 and grade 7 FSA and the grade 10 and grade 12 literacy assessment results. So that's what we have to work with right now. As of this year, we are currently implementing a completed kindergarten and grade 2 assessments. So now we have some local check-in data that we'll be able to collect baseline on this year and be able to review and think about plans for next steps. The grade 6 assessment is currently being developed this year, and my hope is that it will be ready that we'll be able to develop it and field test it this year so that we can implement it next fall, is the hope. And then after that, we can get into the secondary and continue the work around story and oracy skills. So that's sort of the plan there. When it comes to numeracy, we do have completed assessments. Well, first let me explain this. So we have the provincial assessments already in place, as you know, grade 4 and grade 7 FSA. And then there's the one secondary, the grade 10 numeracy assessment. Currently, so for in that area, we already have the number sense assessment for all of the grades K to 8 done. Numeracy is a little bit easier to move more quickly through than literacy, because literacy is across so much of the curriculum. It takes a lot more depth to it. And then, so it's ready to implement. Anybody can use it right now, and so it's open for that. And the intention is that next fall, grade 3 and grade 5 teachers will be giving out those assessments. What we're developing this year is working on the problem solving and student voice aspects of the assessments for grade 3 and grade 5. So that's currently under development. And I hope to have it field tested this year. So again, we hope that could follow into the next year. And then we could move into the grade 8 for the same. Now, we might be able to finish the grade 8 problem solving this year. It depends. But right now, the goal is to at least get the grade 3 and the grade 5 underway. So you can see it's a step-by-step process, and it's also very cyclical iterative as well. All right. I'm going to just pass around the assessments so you could take a look. So what you have there is the kindergarten and the grade 2. And so last year, we trained all of the kindergarten teachers and all of the grade 2 teachers in how to do the assessment. And many of our CST curriculum support teachers from elementary middle also came to some of that training as well. Go ahead.
Sorry, and our grade 1 teachers came also.
Oh, they
just
came
so that,
too?
Just so
Okay.
that they could see what the kindergarten teachers were doing and what was needed for grade 2, because they are actually more responsible for the grade 2, because the grade 2 is really a check of grade 1 skills.
Yeah, we do so as I was saying earlier, we don't, as a district check-in, we don't necessarily need all of the assessment. So for the fall one, the grade 2 is just a short reading passage that the teachers have done. And actually they just input all the data last week. So we're just gonna start reviewing it. And what I wanted to point out as well, as you're looking at these assessments, something that's really important to understand with primary assessment is, if you're not a primary teacher, you might not know this, but it's not a sit-down type of test. So when we say assessment, we're not saying, here, okay, we're going to give you this 60-page assessment, kindergarten kids, and get to it. It's very much an observation survey. So it's very much about having conversations with kids and noticing what they're able to do, or having them sit down and do a little piece with you and show you how they're doing with their assessment. And the idea with the kindergarten one, for example, is that it will be done all year long. And we won't do the district check-in until the spring. So teachers are working on it all year long. And if they are noticing stuff about kids where they need some learning, they're teaching it and reassessing. So by the time we get to spring and we do a district check-in, we're going to know about phonemic awareness of kids who've been working on it throughout the whole year. And now we're still wondering about why they're not catching on to it. Same with the grade 2 assessment. It has lots of little pieces, and so the teachers have just completed that short piece we needed for the district data, but they have all year to be working on all of these pieces. And as I said, what they're working on is part of the curriculum too, so they're not separate aspects. The other thing you should know about too is when you're looking at these, there's an education piece to this. So we are trying to communicate to all kinds of teachers. Some are new career teachers who are brand new to this notion of how do I teach reading well. And then we've got seasoned teachers who've been doing this for such a long time and have that expertise. So how do you create a document that speaks to all of them? So in there, you'll see it seems really wieldy because there are explanations in there, but that's for the new career teachers to understand, why am I doing this little piece of assessment? What does it mean? What's the theory behind it? Why do I need to know about it? And why does the kid need to show me what they're doing there? So that's what's happening there. We do have other supporting documents so that if a teacher already has that background, they can take the shorter version and just do the assessment. Lisa, is there anything you want to share about the training sessions or?
I think the training sessions went really well. Most teachers came, which was fabulous. And we really did emphasize those strategies, that it's just looking at those assessments. Of course, everyone can assess how they want. Some do do little pullouts, but what we're really hoping is it is all done during different literacy strategies and routines. For instance, for the kindergarten, one part is rhyming. So I always did a ticket out the door. So as you're going out the door, I'm gonna say cat, and you're gonna run the word with me, and out you go. And so then I'm just keeping track of who has it with a clipboard or just in my head. And then I can then go, okay, I need to go check on those kids later on and do a small group work. So as much as we can through incidental incidental tickets out the doors, it can just happen in the moment type thing. It doesn't have to be a set time.
And Morgan did some training with them too.
Yeah.
So Morgan McDonald, right, is one of our SLPs, and which one did she train? The kindergarten? Or?
She did kindergarten this year on story grammar marker. So the importance of story.
I think it's okay, is it? Okay.
Welcome to them. I'm going for it. I'm curious. I'm sorry. I'm curious if you would be comfortable speaking a little more, just because I'm wanting to know from your voice about sort of what perhaps the grade 9 assessment of story would be rooted in, or how that would look. And then, oh, my apologies, thank you. And then also, the second part of that question is because I'm curious if that, what you were just saying, sort of can come through those earlier years in terms of the opportunities to find rhyme, to, through the oral communication, through the written expression. Like, is that just leading into, or are they separately seen from your view?
Great question. So I'll start with your second question and say, yes, all of it is meant to be coherent and integrated. So yes, and we'll share the frameworks again so you can take a look again. With the grade 9 story in oracy, last year we had a working group that started that work. Right now, we're trying to be focused and get these other pieces done. It's a pretty big project. But where story we were focusing on oracy because the student advisory told us we need more help with oral communication skills. So we decided that oracy would be a big piece of that, and storytelling started to come into it as well as we met. And in that group, that was quite different, wasn't it, Lisa? So it was a very different type of working group. As I told you, at the very beginning, we've had Indigenous ed and inclusive ed with us the whole time. And in this particular group, we had Jeannie Walker and Lelena with us, right? And because we were going with oracy and story, I actually met with them and said, can you help me with taking the lead in some of this work? Because I don't have all of the background that we're probably going to need here. And so they did help us with that. And in that group, we ended up doing a lot of talk in circle, which was perfect for oracy, right? And getting to know what we need to do with this topic. And we were trying to draw in more secondary teachers. So we are struggling, I'll be honest, we're struggling to get secondary to engage. And so it was a very small group and it kind of stalled out a bit. I think we'll be able to revive it, but it's in waiting, so.
So I have a question with respect to, as you're going through the assessment, and I see there's some goals and some areas of concern. So at what point would you then look at kindergarten or grade 2s may have the IEP, we know the kindergartens do not have them. Would you look at involving the parents and bringing them in there if you see that during the course of the year, during that child's assessment, that they are struggling and there are needs and there's areas of the concerns where we're looking at maybe having an assistant or an IEP or something? How does that fit into how you work with it?
Thank you for that question. So, And what grade it is also does make a difference, so to your point. So in something like kindergarten, if we're curious about how they're doing, it's not a panic moment, let me put it that way. This is really just about where are my kids at, and then where do I know I need to give children more attention, who's needing more attention with that. And so in most cases, through the classroom teaching, kids are going to be picking up the literacy. So this assessment will help those teachers just target better and go, oh yeah, I know I've got 3 kids I need to be working on this strategy with. I'm going to meet with them more regularly on that topic. So in most cases, kids are going to learn the literacy pieces that way. However, having said that, if a pattern starts happening, absolutely, communication with parents is so critical. If you look at our reporting framework, for example, there is that opportunity in K to 7 to also include literacy and numeracy. So we want parents to know how their kids are doing in that area, and absolutely all kids, we have to share how they're doing. If there's any concerns though, that would be an opportunity to dig a little deeper. Kindergarten's probably too early. But what it does say is, who do we know still needs support? Because whether you are struggling with dyslexia or anything like that, ultimately the same strategies need to be therefore to help you, and you need support. So really, it's just going to tell us who is it that needs support, whether they have a designation or not. Won't be a factor in whether we'll be teaching them the literacy. We'll be combining the kids based on their needs. Yeah, but communication with parents will be critical. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I had curiosity because I remember last year my grade 1 daughter came home and said that her barrier was not being able to keep up with the rest of the kids in the class, and it was creating an emotional space for her to feel shy and not confident to engage. And luckily the mother of our child and myself have been really good at doing the home piece with her on the literacy piece with reading and spelling. And so we were able to kind of shore up her confidence to say it's okay that you're not at the same level as other kids. And so out of curiosity and from I think a social work perspective, in terms of system and structure and theory to it, is there a reflective piece in that assessment that looks at the structure and the system and how that affects the child and their viewpoint of self while they're trying to go through that learning process?
Mm-hmm. I think what I can say is it's about how you do the assessment, and a lot of it's about your relationship with the child. And so we definitely talk about those kinds of things all the time. It's intervention doesn't work if there's no relationship, or if I don't feel I can trust you to help me and not judge me, right? So that's a critical piece. So to your point, it's something we talk about all the time with teachers. Yeah. Okay. So I also want to share with you, so Serena Allison has put together this binder, and we're about to get these ready for all schools, all the elementary and middle schools. And so this is our math assessment binder, and I just want to quickly show you, and then you can take a closer look. But each section has different grade levels of a whole class assessment that you do. And then from that whole class assessment, and by the way, there's some front matter here. So same as with the literacy, we have an education piece so that teachers know, why am I assessing this? Why is it important? And so she's got a section on that. But then what we also have in here is some diagnostic assessments. So what that means is if the teacher notices there's a group of kids who seem to be struggling, but I'm not really sure what exactly is the gap, what are they not getting, there's some diagnostic assessments also included here that you can do with kids to find out which concept is it really that they're struggling with. And then there's also, at the end of each of those sections, learning activities that help you teach the child how to understand those concepts. By the way, you can take that one as well. Okay.
I do have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Are all teachers being provided with that binder, like all?
Well, this binder, what we're gonna do is, we have a CST meeting in December, so we're going to give a binder, it has all the grades in there, to each school, and have them log it into the library, and then if a teacher wants a section, they just have to come and photocopy their grades, so they'll have access to it.
And are there any Blackline Masters in there, or is it
There are
just
some,
ideas?
there are some, so you can take a look when it comes around. Yeah.
Question as well. I haven't seen the binder yet, so this may be self-explanatory, but the slide that you have the district check-in points on numeracy, the district's K to 7 number sense assessments, is that what
This
is in all?
is K to 7. But for the district check-ins, when we get there next year, we'll only do the check-ins in grade 3 and in grade 5. But what teachers have asked us for is assessments for every grade. And so what I've said is we can guarantee we'll focus on the district check-ins first, especially with literacy, it takes more time. But eventually, that's what I mean, it's gonna be a process that's gonna take years. Eventually, we'll have all the grades. They really want it. And so that's what you'll see in the numeracy is we do have all the grades in there, so.
Quite crazy. Another question on the other side, Megan?
Thank you. Can you talk about the home piece and the role of parents in this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. And I don't know if you noticed on the one slide at the beginning, but schools also asked for the connection with home. So the home piece is, part of it is the communications, as we were talking a bit before about Janice's question there. Part of it also can be, if parents are interested, hosting some sessions on teaching numeracy and literacy at home with your child, because it's a little bit different. With home, it should be practice rather than instruction, right? And so what we could do if parents were interested is host some sessions on just how can you support your child in practicing their reading, in practicing their number sense, like with games at home, things like that. So there is a strong connection with home, and we want to send home things that kids know how to do and can have some fun with their parents to do and practice. Does that answer your question, or were you thinking something different than that?
Thank you for asking a clarifying question. I think for parents, what we're seeing is that a lot of parents are turning to like private tutoring and things like that because they're worried about the post-pandemic learning gap and they're doing that. Yeah. And they don't necessarily, they can't interpret what phonemic awareness is.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that, but they quite often want to understand, especially if they're looking at kindergartners and they want to set their child up for the best possible and be the most supportive parent they possibly can.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, I'm excited by the passion that's shown in these, but I'm also really curious about how this will translate for parents and how they'll find handholds in it and grasp it.
Great question. Well, I think we also are curious about how kids are doing in literacy and numeracy. I'm very concerned, I'll be honest. And the pandemic probably does have something to do with it, maybe other factors as well. So I think a partnership with home is going to be critical. For sure, parents don't need to know what phonemic awareness means. However, what parents can learn more about is what are some fun things you can do that help support kids learn phonemic awareness, right? Which would be nursery rhymes and games like that. So that is a possibility that we could do something like that for
I think
parents.
that they want to know. I think that they want to understand it. So
Yeah.
I'm teaching the parents and then to teach the child, vice versa.
Yeah. We're okay. So up here, all I just wanted to point out was a few things that we're doing to support implementation. As I said, we're continuously doing professional learning throughout this. So last year, at the end of the year, we had the K and grade 2 teachers do the training for the assessments. In the fall, we plan to have a grade 3 and grade 5 for numeracy. We continue to have our school-based curriculum support teachers at elementary and middle, and their role is to collaborate and co-teach and support their colleagues in learning this work. We also have, of course, our district teachers. Serena Allison does the numeracy, and Alexis, I don't know if you've met her yet. She is working with intermediate middle on literacy, and Natasha is working on primary for us in literacy. We have lots of professional learning opportunities. I'll share a few of those later today. And then we're continuing, as I said, the design process, continuing to tweak, continuing to learn more. And hopefully we're going to have some celebration as well, some successes to celebrate. Yeah.
You commented earlier about the lack of buy-in from the senior high teachers. I'm not seeing anything in the support plan implementation that connects to secondary.
We don't have any secondary assessment resources done for the framework yet. So this year we're very focused on the K to 7. And really, when it comes to implementation, focused on primary literacy right now. Yeah.
First of all, I just want to comment how glorious that binder was. And as an educator for many, many years and all many grade levels, to have it so beautifully laid out for teachers at all stages in their learning as well in terms of implementation and information to support their instructional practice. My question is, in terms of instructional design, in how these assessments are presented to children, as that is written, I see the very assessment as learning format and the way that you're presenting it, and I'm reading it. It looks like we're learning as we're going, just exactly what assessment is. But is there opportunities for educators to collaborate on, for example, how to do a class assessment at ongoing learning tables with different kids at different times, and how to best support the assessment as learning in their practice? Like, the document is fulsome, and then there's the next step is how do I coordinate this, make a plan to actualize it. So I guess that would be my question is has there been conversations about how educators might do that?
Yes. Sorry, you were going to answer. I thought you were taking yes is the short answer.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, what you're saying is so important. Yes, every conversation has a piece of that puzzle within it. And then there are some things we offer that are very targeted to that as well. So, for example, in primary, we're really trying to focus right now on play and early literacy. And so how do you have all your students playing and following their curiosities while also being the teacher who's listening carefully, knows the curriculum, knows literacy, and can extend your learning, right? So we are talking about those things whenever we can. Absolutely.
Another question on the other side of the table. Laurie?
Okay.
We're talking about educators and we're talking about teachers. I'm just curious about the role of your educational assistants in your classrooms in primary grades. Will they have any input into, with any feedback?
Well, I think this will be exactly like any work that we're doing in learning with our education assistants. So if the teacher is creating a plan around literacy, then they're going to definitely be working with their EA about absolutely how are we going to do this together. For sure, there's a role for EAs in this.
Just when I'm reading your thing, it's educators, it's teachers. It are educators as well, so I'm hoping that they get fit into the plan.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that. And I mean, inclusive ed is also, like I said, part of these conversations. It is very teacher focused right now because it really is their responsibility. However, they need EAs to help them, for sure.
They're the ones that have the hands-on.
Absolutely. It's a team thing. Yeah. Okay, great questions. Thank you. So when we talk about what kinds of professional learning, we've got 3 book study series after school, and they're great. Like the middle one, Matt Glover, the author is zooming in for 4 of the sessions to talk to the teachers. We have 70 teachers at that one, for example. There's a numeracy book club, and they're going to also be watching sessions together on doing inquiry in mathematics, and they're studying the book Mathematical Mindsets. And Alexis is also hosting the Shifting the Balance book club, and in this one, it's helping intermediate middle teachers with, and some secondary are actually showing up for that one, helping them understand how do I teach the curriculum while I'm also teaching literacy. And so those pieces, putting those pieces together. We also, if you go on our website, check out our website, those links there. We've got mini videos from Serena and Jackie that are all about routines in literacy and numeracy. So teachers can go back and access those and get a 15-minute refresher on something they can do with their students. And let's just hand out the frameworks again so you can see those. One is literacy and one is numeracy. I guess what I wanted to just share now too is that we're really excited to have the strat plan, and we're really excited about our goal around the competency development for students. The core competencies are so integrated with our frameworks because we did tie it and align it so well with the curriculum. So that's really exciting. The other piece is we also, in the frameworks, as I said, we had inclusive ed and Indigenous eds integrated and working with us the whole way through. And so you'll see in the frameworks, the Indigenous perspective is integrated in there right from the beginning. And so I've just highlighted here, for example, there's the piece about story in the literacy framework, and how I'm working on storytelling right from kindergarten, going right through the grades. And at our last CST session, we really focused on story, and in that, we were able to also integrate pieces from the strategic plan. So one of our design principles is decolonizing and indigenizing. And if you're familiar with the Indigenous Education Department webpage, you might know that there's a YouTube video resource in there with lots of little video clips. And we were able to start our afternoon together by hearing from Suzanne Camp, sharing the story of this place. And if you ever get a chance to watch this video, it's really, really insightful and impactful. But what's also exciting is as you listen to the story of this place, and she shows you, represents time on a bead line, the more you listen, you can hear literacy and numeracy in her story over and over again. So it was really exciting to see the teachers listen to it and connect and go, oh, I do see literacy and numeracy, and pull that out. And then right after that, we had Morgan, SLP, come and spend time with our CSTs to work on story grammar markers. So how do you teach components of story? So we're trying to bring in all of the pieces, but there you can see literally Indigenous education and inclusive education being part of the work that we're doing. So we are trying our best to integrate all of the time. Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier about videos for teachers and supporting teachers, and I'm wondering, is there a chance to incorporate some parent videos, tutorials to assist parents with what's happening? I know time frame, but to have those where parents can go on the website and they can maybe check and see and see what's happening and have them maybe understand the process. I think that valuable input, sometimes those tutorials on that one there is quite valuable. I'm just wondering how that is something you've thought about, because you would talk about, you know, because some of the videos when you see it online and you visualize it, you get deeper understanding. I'm just thinking sometimes parents, especially with time and that, you know, 5 minutes, have a video tutorial on what's happening with the assessments, how they can then support their students in a way that supports them in the classroom, and something maybe you considered.
Okay, we'll think about it. I hadn't thought of that actually, so we'll think about that. Yeah. You know, as long as I don't have to do the video. I
think there's Craig over there.
Okay, and so again, integrating the strategic plan. So we have out there, we're going to do 2 series on play and literacy, this one there, and also on inquiry and literacy and numeracy for the intermediate grades. So we're getting teachers together to look at, like I said, a holistic view around the learning and how do we put these pieces together. So that's pretty exciting. I'll have to share that with you another time when we actually do that. So, okay. So now we're into something completely different. How are we doing for time? Not good. Not good. Oh, shoot. I talked too much. I'm sorry.
We had some time at the beginning. That's it. I was thinking, we're done at 8.
We do have a second presentation, yes.
Yes. So we'll go through this quickly. Play. So I just want to start off by showing you, this is my evolution as a teacher. So on the left-hand side is how I entered into my teaching career. Very traditional, very, my students were empty vessels. I cared greatly for them. I built huge relationships for them, but I didn't necessarily see them as capable and confident of learning. And what I found out was they weren't learning the way that I was teaching them. They were learning a little bit, and of course some were learning, but some were not. And so I went and I did a lot of learning on my own and really became aware of play-based learning. So I did a complete shift. So on the left-hand side, my classroom would have looked very color-coded, everything in its spot. Same on the right, but there was no choice on the left. You signed up for a center and you stayed there, or maybe I signed you a center for the day. When it was center time, I normally taught kindergarten. And on the right-hand side, you were free to do what you wanted to do. You could use anything in the classroom, and you could use it in unique ways. The kids on the right graduated in June. And they spent a week on this inquiry, and it was painting water. They painted the water every day. Every child went in it organically at some point during the week, and then they tried to unpaint it. They tried soap, they tried oil, they tried the color white. The paint palettes, so me on the left-hand side, there's like the white plastic things, and they have the paint pucks in them. If those colors smudged or went on each other, I might have lost it internally a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, they're mixing the colors. The whole paint thing is in the water. I had to let go, and my kids flourished. I actually did the academic teaching of phonics, etc., later that year, and they were my strongest readers because I allowed them to play and investigate language and just see what the world gave them. And I listened and watched and scaffolded their learning. So one of the things that I'm really focusing on with our educators is center time is not an add-on once your work is finished. It's the learning. Play is the learning, and I now say play is the vehicle for learning, right? In order for deep learning to play, even if you think of things that you love to do, is it worksheets to learn? Or is it play and experiential? So that's what we're going to do today. We're gonna play. So we're gonna start off with a story. And I'm not going to show you all the pictures, but some of the pictures. What I love about this story is that, or this activity has been done with K-1-2 at Navigate Nights. It has been done with educators in summer workshops. It has been done with our PVP at our primary learning series. And now it's gonna be done with you. So, 10 birds were trying to figure out how to get to the other side of the bridge. This has some, a whole nother theme to it too that you'll see, which we won't talk about today, that's a whole nother session. The one they called Brilliant knew how to cross. Marching, he left 9 behind. The one they called Quite Advanced engineered the way. Bubbling, he left 8 behind. The one they called Magnificent had an idea. Swishing, he left 7 behind. The one they called Shows Great Promise figured it out. Squeaking, he left 6 behind. The one they called Extraordinary found a solution. Floating, he left 5 behind. The one they called Outstanding devised a plan. Launching, he left 4 behind. The one they called Highly Satisfactory had little trouble. Drifting, he left 3 behind. The one they called Exceptional thought it was simple. Swinging, he left 2 behind. The one they called Remarkable came up with the design. Flapping, he left 1 behind. So now I'm going to stop reading because you are going to finish the story for me. So we're going to use loose parts, and it's also called Story Workshop, to devise your own story, how it's going to end. So you're going to do that in groups. It allows students to create a story visually and orally within that group. Now, normally you would get the principals, I think I tried to shut them down at like 45 minutes and it was very difficult. We're only going to give you 10 minutes to work in groups. So you have loose parts. So almost all of our primary classrooms have loose parts. This is something that you will see. It can happen in all grades. It's just not for primary. Right now it's mostly in primary. But Chelsea, when we were working on our story, the grade 9 oracy, we did one whole session with loose parts. It can be done in chemistry. It can be done as adults. So what you're gonna do is you break into groups of 4 or 5-ish, and you are going to tell the story using the loose parts. And then afterwards, we'll see if anybody would like to share their story, how the last bird cross the river.
Who else needs some loose currents?
Yep.
I don't know what to do. You'll join I know there's peppers. They all bother and they should have. You only have to say with these things about the last. That's it.
Oh, up here.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. All this stuff.
So here's the next screen.
Yeah.
So tell a story about how your bird crosses the river.
Using the loose parts of the tape. Thank you. Sorry. That's okay.
That's all right. Too excited.
I know, it is exciting. So I think
Ah. That looks good.
And that's, So the reason that I did that activity with the teachers and then the PVP, because I had a question. I've been doing a community of practice around play, and someone asked, how does play go with the curricular competencies, or the core competencies? So after that activity, what they did was each gave them the sheet of the core competencies, and I said, highlight what took place when you did the story. And just take a look, we can pass them around, at all the highlights. And someone whispered, pass this around. That's right. Someone whispered to me, or someone said, it actually covers all of them, because play is the vehicle for learning. And then I challenged them, I said, so those are the core competencies. What are the curricular competencies that were covered in that activity, or if you scaffolded it a bit, could have been covered? And these are some of the things that they listed.
So you can see, when the teacher knows the curriculum well, play does become a vehicle for learning, and they can extend the learning with that. So, I just want to circle back to the beginning of the presentation when I was reminding us where we started in May 2022 and what schools were asking for. And I just want to read you an email. So this is from a teacher. She's written to our district teachers, and here's what she says. Today, I got a new grade 2 student from a school within district. Her teacher sent me some work samples and the assessments she had done this fall. I had the results of the grade 2 reading passage from the district literacy assessment and a SNAP math assessment. With a quick look before school, I had a clear sense of where the student was at. It was so great because these were assessment tools that I know and that I use too. The teacher had even written a note at the top of the SNAP saying probably 1B, which is a code to where they are at. And I was able to put out the booklet for 1B in number sets routine, and it was just right for that student. It was so great to have common tools. What a great game changer. And it's the beginning of November, and I'm thinking ahead to parent conferences, and I already have some of what I need for my new student, which I can easily speak to. Thank you for all the leadership you've given toward making these district assessments. Anyway, that's exciting to me. It's making a difference. So anyway, thank you so much for having us and for being good sports and playing.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivian, and thank you, Lisa, very much. That was a really great, very in detail presentation of all the hard work you've been doing, and appreciate you bringing in the binders of information to showing us some of the real detail and nuts and bolts. And then, of course, this is also a really beautiful influx of example of some of the work, the hands-on work that students get to really enjoy as part of their learning, and how wonderful I really enjoy the play-based learning too. We're hoping that you'll stay for the rest of the meeting. We'll move on past governance, of which we have no update. Briefly on policy, we have a quick update that our next ad hoc policy committee meeting is Wednesday, January 8th, in the new year of 2025 from 4 till 5:30 p.m. And then moving on to our second presentation for the evening. Thank you for being here, Jay. I hope that you don't in any way feel rushed. We still have, I think, lots of time. And if we don't, then please feel free to just keep.
No worries.
Do your full presentation, please.
We have a presentation. I'd like to thank my team who's come in. Molly from her holiday to be here to answer any question. Craig for spending some time this weekend working with me, and Josh and his team for putting together a fantastic portal that we've been using over the past month. That's a tough act to follow. That was a lot of fun. I like to say that I've got interactive maps that we can all move around and play with, connected to the boundary. But I think we're in a positive place. When we originally asked for this time, we were preparing to use the upstairs and having a huge gallery, and we're not at that place with the work and feedback that has come in. Late Friday, our portal closed, and we've been working this weekend to put together the summary of feedback. So we have a brief PowerPoint, and then Craig is currently working on the raw data, just to take any personal identifiers out from people that submitted. But I think our proactive approach of answering questions along the way has been helpful for all of us. I'd like to thank our principals and vice principals, our school PACs for helping spread the word, DPAC as well for the input feedback and helping set up a community meeting. So this is kind of a check-in, this presentation that will bring us over the next 2 weeks to some recommendations that we'll put forward for our board. So first slide really is just a timeline where we've come. It feels like blink, and we're moving into the end of November soon. We originally started talking about this at the beginning of October, and we started putting together opening our feedback portal to the public. I really was impressed with Brendan and some of our team, Josh's team, with how interactive that map was. You can zoom right in on people's houses, and you can see kind of what we were proposing to do. We met in October with information. November, Friday, the feedback portal closed. And tonight is just to dive into some of the themes. And we'll send this PowerPoint out to all of the trustees following this meeting. We were just finishing it yesterday afternoon. And then on November 26th, there'll be some recommendations for discussion. Jumping into the next slide, just some stats that we summarized yesterday. And thank you, Craig, with the communications and just pulling this information. We had over 2,000 people visit the site, 3,400 views on the page, and really we did adverts in the Comox Record, 100 radio adverts on the Eagle. There was an article in the paper, and Facebook and Instagram ads, and as we see there, about 8,000 reached. So I think this was a good dabble in this process, and we feel that we heard from quite a few people, and at the least people engaged in the site itself. The next slide, just quick summaries. What we heard from Aspen Park, some of the themes was walkability, support for catchment. There was general support for catchment expansion. So there were families that said, yes, we understand, and appreciated the areas that we were considering. So that dark green kind of shaded area is the area we're proposing be captured in Aspen Elementary. And there's some comments around some better alignment with secondary school catchments. This is something we have looked into, and if you look at the secondary school catchment map, the existing map, it runs all the way up McDonald, and to the left of that goes to Isfield, and to the right goes to Highland. So there is actually quite close, other than the little jog in the map, that we propose stay at Aspen. Because of walkability to the school and space in Aspen. So for the most part, they do align with secondary. The walkability, there's a comment about need for a sidewalk for the intersection of Lerwick and Aspen. That one kind of plagued me when I went home last night. So we went for a walk. And we started at Aspen Elementary and spent, I believe my watch said 35, 40 minutes. And we walked every way we could from Aspen Elementary, ensuring the rule was making sure that there's a crosswalk. And there were multiple ways that we could walk across the road, either at McDonald or at Aspen and Guthrie. They all had crosswalks. Most kids, and I saw this morning when I drove my son to school, that most come down, cross the road. If they're coming from that side of Guthrie, they cross the road and then they do another crosswalk and they walk up to Merlette. And they walk down Merlette, and there's 2 crosswalks that take them right into the backside of Aspen. So, that, as these came in, many of our team would get in our car and we'd go check it out. So we really appreciated the input. And this is continued conversation, I think, for all of our schools that we should be having around walkability. And as the Comox Valley grows, ensuring that, I know Molly and team has been talking to our community partners around ensuring new developments factor in how do we get to school. So overall, positive support around Aspen Elementary kind of expanding their boundaries. We'll jump to the next one, Craig. Next one was we themed proposed changes to Airport Elementary, and really overall feedback supports reassigning students from the new developments that have yet to be built near Aspen Road to Aspen Park because of proximity. And it would make it easier or make the commute more manageable for families. And then also support from Airport Elementary about balancing enrollment with Brooklyn Elementary. So that whole top side that's shaded dark blue would fall, we're proposing will fall into Airport Elementary's catchment as it starts being developed. And that should help with future enrollment pressures at Brooklyn Elementary. We did have, and you'll see it on one of the future comments, some comments from people in Airport Elementary catchment near Cape Laszlo area. Had a couple comments, 1 or 2 comments around how they're closer to Brooklyn than Airport. However, that great comments, and yes, that is the physical case. However, those were previous boundary decisions to ensure that we, basically, it wasn't under our scope to increase Brooklyn's size, space. Our proposal is to decrease Brooklyn Elementary's catchment area. So very good comments. Those families do have busing services available to them in the airport catchment. We really appreciated just open, candid feedback. I'm going to go jump to the next one from Brooklyn Elementary. Must be getting old at small fun. Sorry. Parents generally support the proposed boundary changes to alleviate future space issues by shifting new developments near Pritchard Road to Airport Elementary. And then also this is where I mentioned there's a comment around proximity for commutes, and parents around Radford and Wallace stated that they're closer to Brooklyn than their current catchment for Airport. Very valuable input, but our proposed changes are aimed at reducing Brooklyn boundaries, not increasing Brooklyn boundaries. Overall, and we did host at Brooklyn. We were invited in by Brooklyn PAC, and we did have a meeting there, which we had principals all patch in from all the schools, and we had people from other schools come as well. And it was a great conversation and session. Although eye patched online and I saw myself on a big screen, and next time I'll wear a tie. We'll jump to the next one. So we heard the most from Valley View Elementary. Some comments around capacity and infrastructure. There are comments expressing concerns about adding new students to the school. And Valley View, according to one comment, was seen as a close-knit neighborhood school that, according to the comment, lacks infrastructure to accommodate students, particularly from the new Superstore apartments. They suggest that any of these students be bused away to Aspen or other schools instead. I'll just leave it at that. Traffic, some parents worried about the increase in traffic to the school's parking lot and surrounding residential areas, particularly as new students are added from nearby apartments. And there's comments about more organized drop-off pickup areas to manage congestion. That's a great takeaway, and I think that's a takeaway for many of our schools. So we value that impact. There was some interest in providing school bus service for students from Superstore area to reduce traffic. Walkability, comment around feedback states while new apartments are technically within walking distance, it's challenging to walk due to the hill gradients. Families suggest that more parents will still drive. I thought about walking that one last night, but by the time I finished walking around Aspen, it was getting pretty dark. But we acknowledge that it is a bit of a walk. Much shorter than walking to Aspen Elementary School. So that's something for consideration as well that we'll put in our recommendations. Other than that, those were, and I don't mean to rush, I'm not rushing at all, but those were the key parts that we heard from community feedback. Overall, it feels like that there is support in community for our proposed, I'll call them proactive proposed adjustments. We'll spend the next week kind of analyzing more those the questions or comments. Some of them we were able to answer quickly, just repost back online in the FAQ. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll bring back some recommendations. But the floor is open if there's questions or comments or something I missed. My team's here.
Start with Trustee Payton, and if you could pass the stick, and I have Trustee Cannell-Keen and Megan Howling.
So thank you for the presentation. I have a question in comparison with respect to possible looking at busing from the Superstore apartments to Valley View, similar to what we've done with the Quinnish School, being down in Glacier View area, looking at the age factor, the vulnerable factor of those students, and looking at the demographics for that apartment building. We currently have in place the bus from Glacier View to Quinnish for similar reasons, especially with the vulnerability. And I'm wondering, as the apartments get occupied, looking at who's actually looking in those apartments and whether that vulnerability factor and that issue is going to be similar to that. I walked that hill, and in wintertime, it is deadly. It is icy. That road sometimes is closed on that one. There's some wondering, because we've already done it once, we've got that in practice. Is part of that feasibility study looking at whether there's a city bus or looking at busing and the cost factor. Because I think that students walking that hill, especially those younger ones and the winter ones, is not a safe practice. And I have to be very honest and frank with that, because we already support those students going to Queens for the same reasons.
Yeah, and this is where I'm thankful Molly came in from holidays. But I can tell you, before I pass the talking stick to Molly, we have done, the apartments are for the most part rented. And we have done a study in terms of how many students are currently there and where they're currently attending. And it's not as many as people would imagine. Ballpark, Josh, do you About 20 students from all of those buildings are attending our schools. And most of them they're in our schools already at either Valley View, one or two at Aspen, one maybe at Niche, and the rest at Highland. But yes, we have been considering the busing, and for some background on busing. There we go.
Sure. I think it's feedback that we look at annually as far as the need that we hear from people requesting school bus service. Presently, we haven't had a lot of vocalness from that group needing busing. There is the cost factor that takes considerable planning and assessment at a district level. That wouldn't just lie with operations. It is considered a neighborhood school, although you are correct that Craniche is unique. Although its catchment area actually spreads into a little bit more of what we would classify as rural and less central. So that also plays a factor in what schools have busing versus what don't.
But it is something that we will take away over the next 2 weeks and factor into our recommendations.
I was actually going to ask, just so we're going the proper direction, do you mind if Jen goes before me? No, just so that we let Megan.
It's easier to pass this thing around too.
I will pass that. I'll just jump in there if you want. I would like to thank you for coming to Brooklyn again and for all throughout this, your willingness to engage with parents and openness and dialogue and really answer their questions, kind of where they're at. It was one of the pieces that really set this boundary consultation process apart from previous ones, and it's very, very appreciated. One of the things that I think resonated really strongly with parents was when you talked about your willingness to look at cross-boundary applications on a case-by-case basis for what's best for the family and the child. And I'm just hoping that that will continue as well, because it was something that really, I think it relaxed a lot of the families and it sort of really took the edge off as well as the dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what we go through that process. And as I recognized during that presentation, it can be stressful for families. And I shared in that presentation my own experience a few years ago moving to Comox and not being clear in that. And I'm an educator who's been in this for many years. So we do and we will look at each request on an individual basis. Also, though, having to factor in what the constraints are in different classrooms, class size. But every request gets looked at and discussed. Decisions are made, and regardless of the decision, it's looked at in a heartfelt, logical way. So,
Chelsea, let me budge. Thanks, Chelsea. I appreciate it.
Did you grab that up for her?
It was a gentle thing. I just clarification, just this presentation that we saw on PowerPoint, will it be attached to the agenda for viewing? Because I see, like, when I look at this here in our agenda here, and I see the previous presentation is there, but this.
Yeah, it just wasn't made until yesterday. So
okay, it'll just be attached, because I know there's not minutes to. So I just want to make sure that it's on.
Absolutely, we didn't want to build a presentation before the portal closed.
Fair.
So that's why Craig and I worked on it yesterday.
Transparent.
We have a PDF copy available we can get on it.
Yeah.
Definitely, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you. Thanks, Chelsea.
My question is also connected to the Superstore area apartments, and I've been, because I go to my other job right there every day, and I've been, even if it's 10 children, my heart's been watching, because I know for a fact, because I look it up, it is statistically the third most dangerous intersection in the Comox Valley at Ryan and back. And even if it's a few students, I think some of what I'm seeing in my heart is seeing just families who are going across to get public transit on bus 1 or bus 3 right at the bottom of Ryan, so that probably is some of it as well. But I do see a lot of those students walking, if they are
perhaps Quinish students, and I understand that's not directly what this is regarding, to go and get their bus from Glacier View. So my heart hopes that we consider, this is not a well-worded question, I apologize. I hope that we consider whether perhaps bus 818 or something could maybe consider the students who currently attend Quinish and are in those apartments. Because I don't cross Ryan Road for work anymore because I'm not comfortable doing it. And 5 years ago, even 10 years ago, we were pretty comfortable doing that. So I fear how often there are accidents there, and I wonder what opportunities could be for the students who won't be won't be starting in a new school, perhaps, or perhaps those families will choose to because there will be busing, I'm not sure.
And I think that's absolutely, it's something we considered when we put the proposal together is we wanted to try to avoid people crossing Ryan and have Ryan as the natural boundary for the Comox Valley. And yes, I agree, there's two intersections there where we don't want to see our kiddos crossing if we can avoid it. And that's why we proposed the Valley View. And it should be a safer journey. But yes, we'll consider that over the next week as we put our recommendations together. Good point.
Thank you.
Another question?
Yes.
That just went around the full circle.
Pretty good. And speaking to that exact same point and place in my mind's eye, but I'm old, so I could be missing something. From the apartments, you can take back roads to the post office, and then from there get to the sidewalk, and then hang a right on back, go up back to 10, go up 10, and so that way
You're on to us.
yeah, so we're totally away from Ryan altogether. So is that a possible walking bus route, or I haven't timed that. I don't know how long it takes, or if that still puts us in catchment, but my mind was just thinking about a way for those.
That is actually an improved walkability. We've talked about that, and I think a couple of us, I know one of us at least lives in that area.
Okay,
And
so,
It's still a heck of a walk, but it's much safer. It's
very manageable.
Yeah.
There's lit
Okay.
crosswalks, there's sidewalks. It's, I think I've walked it, it's about 20, 25 minutes.
I'd say 20.
Tops.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, great comment, yeah.
You have another question behind you from Sean?
Okay, go.
With the airport catchment, I know that part of it is that new development that's going in along Pritchard. Have you looked at the walking feasibility from there to airport? Because most of that is along, I mean, you have the traffic circle to deal with, and then
You've got the traffic circle, and then I walked this one and drove by it. You've got the traffic circle, and then you have a left on the first road, which pops into, pretty much goes onto in behind the apartments. And that's all sidewalk. There's a large curve there, but then we also have airports and busing school. So if we tie that in, we could have a bus stop that stops right at that kind of the traffic circle. But it's actually a much shorter walk than walking to Brooklyn, that area, and not uphill, which was a slog for me.
I was just concerned with the lack of sidewalks.
And I would hope that when they put in these developments, they, as we said, would meet with the community and be advocate for walkability. Who else wants to talk instead? Oh, there we go.
Our chair. Okay, we are almost at the end of our meeting. Thank you so much, Jay. That was a great presentation. Appreciated the proactive approach of the district in taking on this consultation. Two last points to make before I ask for a motion for an adjournment. One is, I know Jeremy has something that he'd like to say. And I also just want to reiterate that the format for today is a work in progress. It is an effort to do something a little new and different. And we are very amenable to feedback from everyone around the table about what you thought worked and didn't work so that we can continue the evolution of our thinking and doing. And that's my last one. Before the
I just wanted to add and just connect back to the first presentation. First of all, I appreciate any time that we spend an hour just talking about learning. It is our core purpose and the central part of the organization. And just for me, first of all, Kiyoshi, I appreciate you sharing that story that connects to your family. And I think one of the things when we talk about transforming the system and being dedicated to continuous improvement is, and I just loved how that finished. It finished with play. We're all good at play. I'd go home and say, you know what, I was successful at play, probably disturb a group or two, but what I wanted to get at is, when we think about transforming the system, if we start to really, and I heard it in the presentation, honor the whole child, and the deep belief that every group of kids we work with is infinitely gifted and talented, and that our job as educators, and educators, the inclusive term of educators, becomes more about uncovering and amplifying strengths rather than communicating needs. Wouldn't it be great if our children come home with, I'm working on my reading, but I'm excelling in, rather than a message that says I've been othered, or I'm lesser, or I'm stupid. And our kids, because of our system, often get that message that harms them before they even have a chance to catch up. So I see the great equalizer of play and appropriate primary pedagogy of being a space that, as we move more fully into, starts to support kids in a deeper understanding of their value as whole, independent kids in their full identity, and changing it from a deficiency lens that our students have often left school with. And so I just wanted to come back to that comment and appreciate you sharing, because I think the transformation of the system is when we're meeting need, but it's coming across without other messages that are hurtful. So thank you for bringing that into the room.
Thank you for those inspiring words to almost close our meeting. And thank you everyone for staying the extra time. We're running about 15 minutes late, so you're very much appreciated. So we're 8:45. Can I ask someone to make a motion for adjournment? Thank you. Seconded by Sir Jane. All in favor? Thank you.